Naming Supreme Court justices is one of a president's most enduring legacies. As a candidate, Richard Nixon said he wanted judges who were strict constructionists, not super legislators with a free hand to impose their political and social viewpoints upon the American system and the American people. His first opportunity to find such a person came on May 21st, 1969, just 4 months after he was inaugurated.
I have known him for 21 years, and I would evaluate him as being qualified intellectually, qualified from the standpoint of judicial temperament, qualified from the standpoint of his legal philosophy, and above all, qualified because of his unquestioned integrity throughout his private and public life. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud tonight to nominate as the 15th Chief Justice of the United States, Judge Warren Burger.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the Cabinet, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. At a time like this, the best thing to say is very little. I am bound to say, of course, that I'm grateful to you, Mr. President, for your gracious expressions of confidence. I hope I shall be able to earn and deserve that confidence. I hope you won't mind if I say that, in a sense at least, you pay tribute to all of the sitting judges of the federal and state systems in this nomination. Men and women who, day in and day out, perform the difficult tasks of the administration of justice. And I hope I can, in a way, share that with all of them tonight. I thank you very, very much, Mr. President.
Coming up, calls between President Nixon and his Supreme Court Chief Justice, Warren Burger, plus reflections from the Chief Justice, including his thoughts on the case that dealt a fatal blow to the Nixon presidency. Warren Burger rose from humble Midwestern roots to become one of the longest-serving Chief Justices in Supreme Court history. An attorney and political figure in post-war Minnesota, Warren Burger was an early Nixon supporter. He helped sway the state delegation to the Eisenhower-Nixon ticket at the 1952 Republican Convention. The next year, President Eisenhower appointed Warren Burger as an assistant U.S. Attorney General. And in 1955, he was named to the high-profile D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. During his 13-year tenure there, he gained a reputation as a conservative law and order judge. So it was no surprise to see him on President Nixon's shortlist to replace retiring Chief Justice Earl Warren. Just 18 days after he was nominated, the Senate confirmed Warren Burger by a vote of 74-3. The president personally attended the swearing-in ceremony. As Chief Justice, Warren Burger voted with the majority in the Pentagon Papers decision and the Roe v. Wade decision. Ironically, he also helped to end Richard Nixon's stay in the White House. We begin on December 25th, 1971. Just a few weeks earlier, the Senate had confirmed 2 new Supreme Court justices, Lewis Powell and William Rehnquist. The 2 men replaced the retiring John Harlan and Hugo Black. And the President and Chief Justice discussed the new additions.
Hello.
Chief Justice Burger on the line, sir.
Warren, I just called to wish you and all the family a Merry Christmas.
Well, how wonderful of you
And
to take the trouble.
and to tell you that I'm really pleased that you've now got a couple more people in that court, and that load you've been carrying is a little bit lighter.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be, and these are 2 really first-class men
Right.
that you've got here.
One thing I think, of course, you've known Powell for years, but one
Yes, I have.
thing about Rehnquist that I think you'll be pleased. He is a bearcat for work, and he's totally honest and objective, and so I just pile it on him. He can take. Most people think that the only cases that come to the court are the spectacular ones, but my guess is 80% of them are things that are just hard work.
Just plain work, that's right.
And this fellow is a fantastic worker. That's one of the reasons that when I finally came down, I thought he'd be a good one to add to the court.
Well, he certainly shows every sign of it. I've had 2-3 visits with him.
Have you? Good.
And he's just so eager to get to work. And of course, from his work with Bob Jackson, he knows the machinery of the court and the technique.
Right.
So he's got a running head start. Well,
I won't be here for the swearing in because I'll be down with Sato.
Oh, yeah.
But I met them the other day and gave them their commission. So the main thing is you work them. And let me say that all this talk about the Nixon court is nonsense. To me, it's the Burger court.
Well,
that's what we want.
It's the Supreme Court. I think now we're on the way to having a mighty good court for the future.
Right. Right.
You're getting off soon, are you?
Well, I have to go to Florida tomorrow for meetings.
We're down at Williamsburg. We took a house down here that took our son and daughter, and we just taking it easy. We went to the night service at the old Bruton Parish House last night and had a great time.
Wonderful.
Well, give our very best to Mrs. Nixon, will you?
You've been a great credit to the court, and the country's grateful.
Well, we're on the way to maybe getting this country back on the road, and your part in the way these things are going and your department are going.
It's a little cooler than it was. I said, how's the health of the country? I said, better. But I said, it's never going to be perfect. I said, we don't live in a perfect world, but every year we'll make a little progress.
It's certainly cooled off from 2 years or even a year ago.
Right.
Well, have a good holiday, what there is left of it, Mr. President.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
The two spoke again 5 months later, following the death of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover.
Hello, Mr. President. I thought you'd be pleased to know I was just talking to John Connolly. He said he'd been up to the memorial service and that you made a very eloquent tribute to Edgar Hoover. So,
I'm glad to have John.
I have to do one tomorrow, so boy, they're hard to work out, aren't they?
They are, and
without getting too maudlin, and everything has been said.
They didn't call me till about 8:30 last night on this.
I know.
The chief merit of it, I think, was that it was about 3.5 or 4 minutes long. And the one point, Mr. President, that I wanted to make was that Edgar Hoover carried out the difficult task of law enforcement without impinging on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, which he's been accused of doing. And I wanted the record to be clear that I thought that very strongly.
Right.
Well, I'm going to be there, of course, in the morning.
Right. Well, I'll try to pick up a couple of different themes. I won't do the same thing because I told our fellows to look at your thing so that because I think I should, we'll all try to get a little bit.
Get a copy of it.
I'll tell you what you do. Of course,
somebody down with it if you want.
Yes, send it. Would you mind sending it to John Andrews in the EOB? John Andrews. He's working on the speech right now. I just worked out the second copy.
All right.
And I'll tell him it's coming.
Good. I'll send it down. At least see where we're tracking. But it was a very nice ceremony in the sense that it was short.
Right.
Only about 12 minutes all told.
Great.
Well, I'm certainly nice of you to call.
Good. How you feeling? How's your back?
Well, back's doing pretty well.
Yeah,
I'm so crowded today. I've got to skip Dr. Ryland.
Oh, that's too bad. Too bad.
I'll catch him next week.
All right. Good. Well, he's always there for you whenever you want him.
Well, and it's a great help to me. I try to get in at least every other week, and this fellow's the greatest I've ever come.
No question. No question.
Well, he certainly does. And then in between, almost every other day, I use the whirlpool bath downstairs, which is a great relaxer.
Do you have a whirlpool in your building?
Put in when I got up here. They only cost about $500 to put in.
Good.
And it's the greatest relaxer.
Do any of the other judges use them or not?
Hugo Black used to use it once in a while, but nobody else uses it here.
That way it's nice and clean.
It is. And it's always available.
Okay.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Mr. President.
Fast forward now to January 2nd, 1973. 2 months after his landslide re-election, the president takes a few minutes after the holiday weekend to say hello.
Have Chief Justice Berger.
Yeah.
You are.
Hello.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Well, I understood you called yesterday on the New Year, and I should have called you.
Well, not at all.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to...
How you feeling?
Oh, just fine.
Yeah.
And they look fit?
Yeah, well, we got my gosh, did you go to the game by chance? No.
I haven't been to...
I never go to those games because, tell you why I don't, is that whenever they're sellouts. I went to one, Oklahoma, Texas and Arkansas about 3 years ago, and the problem was that it really caused so much commotion because it over 100 people have to go when I go, 60 I just saw it up there.
Well,
I was working up there anyway.
The instant replay is much better.
It's the only way to see a game. Of course, there's something to the excitement of hearing the audience there.
Well, I haven't gone to one for years. I usually did yesterday just the way you did. I was down here at 9 o'clock. Worked all day.
That's right.
Even missed the game.
This is the time to actually, in these periods like this when people are all gone. I'm just been in the office today and yesterday, and you can just get you get a lot of the paperwork done that you just have put aside. Say, well, I'll do that someday when I get a few minutes. You know.
I wanted to start the year with a clean, empty box.
I do it every time, and my box is just as clean as it can be.
I unfortunately didn't get out all my opinions, but I got all the little stuff out of the way. So now the decks are cleared for another.
Now you got your mind cleared so that you can make the big decisions.
We'll have interesting ones coming out pretty soon too.
Oh boy,
I've been struggling with this pornography thing. I don't know I don't know how we're coming out, but I'm coming out hard on it myself, whether I get the support or not.
You're right. Well, I feel, of course, I'm a square. I'm like Alan. I'm a square. I'm on that. I mean a square in the sense that they just. I've read those cases when I did the Hill versus Time thing, and because it relates to the whole freedom of the press thing, and let's face it, they've just gone overboard. That's all. It's always a question of balance. Maybe you can. They say they go back to these 16th century stuff and say that well, what's wrong with that? That was great art. Well, the stuff today is not great art. The stuff today is just has its purpose. What is that term that they have? You have a
redeeming social purpose.
Yeah, good God.
One of the biggest frauds.
That was a Brennan opinion, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's a phrase that emanated from some of the campuses in this period. And
redeeming social purpose.
This means that if they have one of these outrageous orgies, then if they mention Vietnam or the condition of the ghettos, that redeems the whole thing.
Oh boy, isn't that something?
Well,
what else do you have? Do you have other decisions? Is the busing thing coming out, or
no? That's way down the road.
That's good. The longer the better.
The longer the better is right.
Right. Maybe
we've been into that.
Maybe we get some legislation passed and get it out of the way.
We've got. I think things are coming, and I get impatient, but they're coming. And by the way, this young fellow, he's young now for you and me. He's 12 years. Rehnquist is a real star.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
He's good.
Well, we'll try to give you one day if we ever get a chance to try to get another one.
Get another fellow.
I have no ideas. I understand that you remember General MacArthur's famous statement when he spoke to the Congress. I'd put it a little differently for Supreme Court justice. Supreme Court justices never die and they never fade away. Right?
You've got to get some young fellows up here and not any more 60s like.
You guys are all right. I mean, my guys in their 60s are great. The Berger, Blackman, Powell triumvirate. But I'll tell you. But let me say, I agree. I think one of the problems in the Congress. I was looking over a list here of our Republicans, and good God, I mean, we've got people over 70 that I hadn't realized. I mean, Les Aarons, Bill Wood, and all and so forth. They're too old. They're too old. You know what I mean?
You can't keep
not because understand. Up until I think you could, frankly, in a court, I think you can serve, say, to 75, because it's a different kind of a thing.
The pace is different.
But at the Congress, I think the House and the Senate, you ought to be out of there by 70, because that's a murderous thing down there.
That's the big reform that needs to be had over there. It's just getting some vigorous young guys in their 40s.
Nobody should run for the House if he's over 40, because he can't mount anything. Run for the first time, I mean. And nobody should run for the Senate if he's over 50 for the first time. Now, you see, because you've got to be in so you can serve 20 years. I've been trying to preach this. George Bush is going to help a lot in that respect. He's a great choice for chairman.
Well, he'll be an attractive guy to attract candidates. Well,
you see, we got Bush in that point, and then Brock is going to be the Senate campaign committee man. He's a young, vigorous fellow. And Bill Butt Brown, the son of
Clarence?
Clarence's son, who was just bright as a tack. He's going to do the house job. He's a big, smart, not nearly as abrasive as Clarence, and almost as smart. So I think we'll have a fine team getting candidates this time.
Well, it's mighty nice of you to take the trouble to call back.
Well,
we just wanted to leave our greetings.
Well, we'll see you on the inauguration. I mean, you're the guy that has to swear me in, you know.
Yes, the vice president I talked to the other day. I guess that tradition has varied with the vice president. But he called me, asked me if I'd do it. Sure. And I said yes. I'll do two for the price of one.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
actually, what happens is that the vice president actually normally does pick somebody else. I had Nolan swear me in 56. Mm-hmm. I don't know who did it the other time. I've forgotten. Nolan did it in 56. But it doesn't make it's a matter of it varies, and I think it's really neater to have you do both.
Yes, it produces one more body on the platform.
That's right. Hadn't thought of that.
That space is going to be premium.
That's right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you.
We're looking forward to seeing you.
One of the beauties of my oath, it's very short. His is quite long. His is the same. You know the difference. Yeah. Did you know there's a difference?
Yeah.
His is that long one, that you give to senators.
Yeah.
But mine is very short. I just swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States.
It's about 7 lines long.
Yeah. Even I can remember that. Okay.
Good to talk.
Bye.
Warren Burger retired in September 1986 as one of the longest-serving Chief Justices in Supreme Court history. In 1994, he talked to C-SPAN about his nomination, his relationship with President Nixon, and the U.S. v. Nixon decision.
There had been tension between Earl Warren and Richard Nixon, which is perfectly normal when you've got a leader like Earl Warren, who was governor, and then a younger leader coming along, moving up. Tension does develop. But he wanted to dissipate that, so he had a beautiful dinner for the Supreme Court and Earl Warren at the White House, and I was invited, which surprised me. When I got there, I was the only judge in the United States except the members of the court. Well, that set the newspaper speculating that I might be appointed to one of the vacancies. And that on May 21st, he sent a message that he was nominating me that night, and would I be at the White House at 7 o'clock or something like that.
What do you think former President Nixon saw in you to nominate you?
He once mentioned that he had read some of my lectures on criminal justice, and that's what got him interested. Particularly one lecture, a commencement lecture at Ripon College in Wisconsin. And that's about all I know.
And how did you feel when he asked you to be at his office at 7 o'clock the next morning?
Well, a little bit shocked, frankly, because I had not expected it. This was about 1 o'clock on that day, and I got a message that the Attorney General wanted to talk to me. And since I knew that if he came over to my building, to be noticed by the reporters, so I walked over to the Capitol, over to the Department of Justice. I told him that I was accustomed to taking a walk every noon, which was true, and I would just walk over there, which I then did. And later he explained, President Nixon explained that night when we got there for the television announcement, that he wanted the record to be clear that he had no conversations with me in advance. There were no discussions about how I would decide cases or what my views were. that he knew enough about my views to be satisfied, but that there was no conversation. And then he made the announcement, and it was on the way.
Did you ever socialize with the late former President Nixon? Did you ever socialize with him?
At state dinners, yes. Nothing else. He was never in our home. I was never in his home except at a state dinner, formal dinners.
What about recreational activities? Did you ever play golf together?
No.
Nothing like that. Do you have any favorite stories? Any favorite stories?
I never got into a conversation like that with him.
Since he was the person who nominated you for the Chief Justice, did you feel a loyalty to him?
Did I feel what?
A loyalty to him?
No special loyalty at all. I had a great respect for him. As a matter of fact, I had to write the opinion that, in effect, put him out of office.
And that was the Watergate case, United States versus Nixon. How did it feel to have to consider that case?
Well, it's painful to decide some cases, but you have to do it. It was a unanimous opinion of the court, and the issue had really been decided many, many years before, that there can't be any privacy claim to papers or information that relates to the administration of justice. That if that was decided in a case where Chief Justice Marshall, sitting as a trial court judge in the case against Aaron Burr for treason, required Thomas Jefferson to turn over some reports, military reports, that he had ordered. As a matter of fact, I'm told pretty reliably that after that case came down, sometime after, just when I don't know, he said the case was right.
How did you come to write the unanimous decision?
How?
How did you come to write the unanimous decision?
Well, the Chief Justice assigns, if the court's unanimous in a major case, or even if it isn't unanimous, the Chief Justice assigns the opinion, and that's how I came to write it. It's traditional for a particularly important case that the Chief writes the opinion.
You can find more of C-SPAN's discussions with Chief Justice Burger and learn more about the Burger court decisions, including the Pentagon Papers, the Watergate tapes, and Roe v. Wade at cspan.org. And in Season 1 of Presidential Recordings, hear secretly recorded conversations President Lyndon Johnson made on topics including the Warren Commission, the Vietnam War, the March on Selma, and more. Next time on Presidential Recordings, more calls on the Rehnquist and Powell nominations, and just how close the president came to nominating the first woman to the court. Our thanks to NixonTapes.org, the Miller Center at the University of Virginia, and the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum. And remember to follow Presidential Recordings so you never miss an episode.